Welcome to the 10-Acre Woods. My name's Mark, and today we're going to talk about how we care for our goats. It's been rainy the last week. It's nice to finally see the sun out. Now I don't see the boys up front here. I was going to start out with them. I've got some apples all ready for them. So I'm going to call them in, and we'll talk about our goats, how we started with goats in the beginning, and some of the lessons we've learned over the years, and just general caring for the goats. So I'm going to call the boys in, and we'll give them some apples and talk a little bit about them. Come on! Were you guys way up front? Oh boy! Here, look, I got some treats for you. Oh, I know you love it. Carl? Carl doesn't particularly care for the apple, which is strange. Are you gonna? Oh, you're gonna eat it this time. Okay. And Levi's coming up the rear. Oh, there's one. Okay. One thing I mentioned in last week's video is when giving apples to animals, you want to make sure they're cut up, at least in half, so that they don't choke on them. Hey? Oh, you're liking that now. Now we're going to see some action, aren't we? Okay, so where do we start with goats? Well, we started with chickens first, and actually pigeons. So we had some. Yeah, you like those, don't you? Some fancy pigeons, and there you go, done. And some chickens, and then of course a few rabbits as well. We had. Now our original chicken coop was this building right here. So we had chickens in that. We had the pigeons in the top portion of it. Don't pull down my pants. That's it. I'm done, boys. And then we had, the goats inside this building here. We started off with a female. I believe it was December, if I recall correctly. That was her name. Just so happens she was born in December. Hey boys, just don't be so rough with me. And then we had a male goat, very similar looking to Carl, and his name was Cooper. Now, one of the things we learned, and I've brought this up in a few different videos, is grains. Having grains around your animals, you have to make sure that they don't get into it. So of course, when feeding ducks and chickens, we had to keep up coming up with ideas to feed the ducks and chickens, but not have the goats go in. So we ended up cutting out a section of wood and building this small little building, which was kind of a feed building. And the hole was just big enough so that the ducks and chickens could stick their head into, but the goats couldn't. So that's how we started out with that. Now, unfortunately, with Cooper, we did lose Cooper because he knocked over some barrels. Ow. Look at the love. They're just trying to put their scent on me. What happened was he developed bloat. So when they eat too many grains, they will they'll take it down into their stomach. It's a 4-chamber stomach system, so it works kind of like a filtration system. So they'll eat, then they'll burp back up, and then they'll chew, and then reprocess that food to go down into the next chamber. Hope you guys are enjoying this. Trying to keep concentration. Yeah. So what happened was, eating the grains, it expanded and wasn't able to actually burp up the food. So I was out there and I was feeding them baking soda. You should have baking soda out with your animals, free range, in a container so that they can eat it whenever they need to. Very similar to a dog. When a dog feels sick, a dog will usually eat grass to get sick. So they are pretty smart. So having baking soda out there, as well as, of course, salt, a salt block, is always a good idea. Now, I was out there for probably about 10-15 minutes with him, and he did pass away there while I was out with him. So, lesson learned. It was a horrible way to learn, and that's another reason why I'm putting out these videos, is to teach you and to help you out and answer any questions you might have on goat care, or really any other animal care. What happens there is it's very similar to cattle can have the same problem. They can eat too much corn and grains, and what happens is they actually take a plug and they push it into the top of the stomach. Yes, I know. They push it into the top of the stomach, and then they pull out the pin, and it lets the gas out of the top of the stomach. And that's how that works. So, of course, we didn't have any of that around. We actually don't have any of those around. We should possibly have them, but you don't expect to run into those kind of problems. So these guys mainly eat hay and very little grains, especially these boys up front here. Now, there are areas, other YouTube channels, which I've noticed, and a lot of you have probably... Thanks. A lot of you have probably... No, I don't have any. You're in my way there, Levi. A lot of you have probably watched Read 'em and Weep. Weed 'em and Reap? Weed 'em and Reap. And of course, they're in Arizona. So here we're in the prairies. We have fields of grass and green all around us. In Arizona, well, they're kind of in a desert. They don't have a lot of... they're not in the prairies, so they don't have those the wheat and the hay that we have readily available here. So I've noticed in their video that they feed them pellets, so pelletized alfalfa and different types of grains in that manner. And what's funny is their goats don't even eat the grass, which I find really strange. Possibly because they don't even realize really that it's the food, because their food is pelletized and processed. I'm not quite sure there. But of course, these guys love to graze on grass, and they eat their hay, don't you, buddy? And their apples. We haven't had a whole lot of intact boys. We've had Carl, Cooper, Billy. Really, I'm sure I'm probably missing one, but those are the main ones that we've had, the pygmies anyway. We've had some that have been fixed, some gelded boys, like Bobby that headed off a couple weeks ago. And that kind of brings me up to another thing. So Bobby was pushed around a little bit. So he went off to another farm, but it wasn't because he wasn't fitting in here. He did fit in well with these guys. He just got pushed around a little bit, but he had space. And that's what is very important with having animals, is ensuring they have space, like something I need right now. So he's harmless, he's playing, this is what he does. They get into trouble like that. He loves me. Yes, I know, buddy. So ensuring they have enough space, so they can get into a lot of problems, a lot of trouble, and it's generally when they have very little space in a small enclosed area. Chain link fence is one thing that can cause them problems. We started out with chain link fence, but we had a fairly large area per goat, per square footage kind of area. But having a lot of animals in a smaller area, especially chain link fence, they can try to climb it, they can get their hoofs caught in that chain link, and they can break a leg. They can get their antlers, because as we know, these boys with 2 broken antlers, one each, they like to grab things and hit things and bash things with them. So a chain link fence, of course, they can get hung up on that, and they can get stuck on it. So space is a huge thing. So if you're planning on getting some animals like goats, look at that, you've cracked it again. Then ensure you have a good place for them to get out of the rain, get out of the elements, and you have a fence set up, preferably electric, especially if you've got intact boys. Electric fence is inexpensive, and the way we started it was running it tree to tree. And I did a video, I think it was last summer, installing an electric fence, and it's fairly easy. We bought some temporary posts, and we used trees that were already in the path as some points to secure it to. So that brings me to a question that I've read a couple times in the comments section, and it's goat A doesn't get along with goat B and keeps on headbutting him or her. Sometimes it can be females that are dominant, sometimes it can be males. Now, getting back to the space, the area that they have is very important. You want to make sure that they have enough room, because if goat B that's getting beat up by goat A doesn't like that, at least that goat can leave the area and they can kind of regroup and come back. Sometimes it's good to have a few different goats or throw in some sheep in there. So there's a good mixture of animals, but again, keeping the size and making sure they have enough area to roam around and get away from other ones. Now, you look at the roosters we have. People ask, well, how do you have so many roosters? That's just ridiculous. Don't they fight? And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you will have seen that, yes, they do fight from time to time, but the rooster that's getting picked on has enough room to get away. And again, that's very important to make sure you have the room and the sheltering for the animals. Sheldon. Now, Sheldon is up in this area here because he can get bullied. So segregating your animals is another way to kind of keep the peace. Now, Sheldon's been working really well with Moira, which is over there, and our new one, little George here, haven't you? And you've been showing him the ropes. Yeah. So would he get along with the other ones in the other area? Yes, he probably would. Now, there'd be a little bit of time to settle in, of course, and he'd have to get into that pecking order, like all animals have. Right, Sheldon? Yes. But we keep these guys in here because this is where the visitors come in the first time. They come in through this gate when they come to visit the farm, and they come in here and we introduce them to this crew, which therapy-wise, they kind of take from each other in helping each other out. And Moira's come quite a ways. So she's still, she's still a little leery of people, but she's, hi Moira. But you could never get this close to her when she first came in. And she's seen from Sheldon that it's okay, that us humans are all right. Right, Moira? But of course we don't want to push it, do we? No. And then of course George. Well, George was a bottle baby and they couldn't send him back out into the field. So he wouldn't rejoin the herd, would you, buddy? So he came here. Yeah. Hi, Shadow. Oh, did you want some apples? Sorry, I didn't bring any. I've come back. Oh, there are some goats back here. Okay. I see all these sheep and alpacas and ponies. Hi, Meadow. Oh, and your Mama Willow. Hi. You guys want some apples? Well, I'll have to get some apples for you, but I gave all my I probably smell like apples, don't I? Yeah, you're going to try to eat my hand. No, I don't have any. Okay, getting to another question that was asked was, what do you do with the animals in the wintertime? Can they stay outside? Now, winters here in Manitoba get down to minus 40 degrees, and that is the same in Celsius as it is in Fahrenheit. And it's very cold. Now, last winter we had temperatures down with the wind chill factor down to minus 57, I think it was, which is very cold. That's when you just stay inside. But what do the animals do? So the animals have, and this will be its second winter for this building. We had some smaller buildings years ago, and they were basically woodsheds. And hi, Hannibal. So, and you can almost kind of see the dust outline that runs across there. And if you've watched previous videos, you'll have seen that. So it was that high, and it came out about 8 feet. And it went down to about here. So it wasn't very big. This building now is huge compared to what we have. So these animals need a place. Of course, these get closed off and everything gets closed in. They need a place to get out of the elements and to get out of the wind. Change my lighting here. Out of the wind and off the snow. So of course in here we have a bunch of straw that gets put in, and of course the pigs, Petey and Piper, they stay out here during the winter, even though it is that cold. But what they do is they burrow down into that straw, and they keep extremely warm. Now what was cute is like we have a couple cameras out here just to kind of check in on them, our little baby monitors. What was cute was we checked out on the camera when it was that cold, and who was it? It was Petunia and Coco, so the new moms this year. They were lying on top of the pigs, so it was a symbiotic relationship where the pigs were in there, the goats were on top, and neither party really seemed to mind because they were sharing that heat. So again, when you're planning on getting any kind of animal, really, sheep, goat, alpaca, make sure you look at where are you going to house them, even just to get out of the rain. Now alpacas, they love the rain and they can probably just stay out in the rain all the time, but you need to give them that option. They need to know that there is a place that they can go to get out of the elements, especially in the wintertime. Right, Paula? So now we're in the building. Now this building we built quite a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago I guess it was. And it was an area to get the animals that couldn't stay out to come inside. Now we actually don't heat this building. It's heated with body heat from the animals because it's fully insulated. Now we have a fresh air intake that is up there, and what happens is there is a fan over in this far corner here that exhausts the air out. And then of course I've rigged up a mercury switch with an air conditioner setting so that the fan will come on and off. So the temperature is just above freezing point. So I want it down. I don't want it to freeze because then that wreaks havoc on watering. As waterers freeze, we can get away from using heat lamps. Now there's lots of fires that happen in barns and little hobby farms, and a lot of the times it's because of a heat lamp that has fallen. It's fallen into the straw, fallen into the hay, and had a fire. So it's nice that we don't have to use any lights, any heat lamps. And I did initially wire up heat lamps in this building, or plug-ins I should say, to run heat lamps. But after that first winter we realized, hey, we don't even need to do that. Now we keep it low, just above freezing, for another reason as well, and that's humidity. If you were to keep that temperature up higher, the air is going to hold so much more moisture, and you're going to have sweating on the walls, on the exterior walls, on those cold points. Usually where between the insulation, where the framing of the building is, you will often start to see where the studs are. You'll see frost lines that run down, and that's because the area of the framing has less insulation than the actual insulation itself. You'll also see some kind of frost and moisture buildup on the actual screws as well, because they're metal and they conduct that thermal energy so easily through, and then you develop frost on there. So keeping the temperature warm enough that it doesn't freeze the water, and low enough so that your humidity is kept in check. Another thing to watch for as well is this actually isn't installed properly. It was put here because we were painting, of course, which we have to finish doing, and we will before winter, hopefully, I'm pretty sure. So that fan usually gets mounted here and blows down onto this door and keeps the frost and moisture off the door so we can actually open and close it. So that is pretty important there as well. So there's a few things that we've learned over the years to do. You know, it took us a couple years to figure out the frost and the humidity issue. We brought a dehumidifier out here, but of course that was it just didn't work at all. Dehumidifiers only work efficiently when the temperature is above 15 degrees Celsius. So down, you know, in the single digits just doesn't work out. So air ventilation, that's the key. So who are we going to put in the building for the winter? Well, we're going to put a few people in, animals. Well, I guess they're people to us. Lucy. So Lucy is now 5 years old, I think she is. But she's one of our special cases. So she had she had a selenium, or her mother had a selenium deficiency years ago, and she developed white muscle syndrome when she was just a little kid. So she's stunted in growth. I don't even really see her around. She must be in the back, but she's kind of one of our special ones. So we would put her in. Sheldon would go in. The two kid goats. Hey girl, you're not a goat. This is Petunia, and where is her little one? There she is there. So Billie Jean. So Billie Jean here is this year's kid, so she'll go inside, as well as Holly. Holly is Blackie's little girl, so she's going to go inside too. Just because they're not quite adult yet, goats hit that adulthood about the same as dogs do, 18 months in around from what we understand, and then they're fully adult. So that's a good reason why you shouldn't breed animals under 2 years old. It's just good practice not to, because they themselves haven't developed. Now, who else? So of course we've got Sheldon. Moira, I'm not quite sure. Tara and I will have to discuss, because Moira's, what is she? I believe she's about 3 or 4 years old anyway. So she is an adult, but she's smaller. She doesn't necessarily need to go in. We have to make sure that we limit the amount of animals we can put in, because of course that's just going to add more to humidity and more to problems. George is also a year old, so we will probably put him as well. Right, George? Yeah, buddy. I'm getting pickpocketed by, I think that's Meadow here. She says, you've got something in your pockets. I'm going to have to go and get them something. Now, goat care, getting to the feet. So hoof trimming. So I have done a number of videos on hoof trimming. I'll put a link up top there so you can go back and you can see those videos. They wear differently depending on the type of ground they're on. If they're on a hard ground, of course they're going to wear down a lot faster than if they're on a softer ground. Now, snow is usually pretty good. Hi, Snow. Can I look at your feet? You mind? I don't have an apple. The camera automatically shut off, which is a feature I don't quite like in this model. So just as I was going in to check on her feet, and of course, look at this. I've got everybody. Snow! Come here, Snow. Okay, that's not gonna work. How about you, Blackie? Oh, you're a little touchy on that. You might not like this. Usually we need, can I see your foot? Okay. So here, I'm gonna need Tara to probably hold one of the goats to show you. What I'll do, why don't I just take some footage from one of those older videos and I'll put that in here. Because of course it's late in the day, Tara's inside entertaining, and it's just not a good, but I've got lots of footage of that, so I'll throw that in here. Okay, so you can see how this is folded over here. So you go from the back and you just trim it up, and you want to make sure it's flat and it's cleaned out. You can take off that little tip. Same thing on this side, run it along. Hang on, Snow. You're doing a good job, girl. And just trim it. This is actually pretty deep here. So do a little bit of a time. You don't have to do the whole thing. Make sure that you're not going down too deep. And just trim a little bit off at a time. Ooh, it's hot and muggy back here. You'd think I was living in some kind of tropical jungle, eh, girl? So there we go. So that brings us to another question that I've seen pop up in the comments from time to time. There is a product called 60-30-10 or Goat Sweet. What it is it's oats, and there's a little bit of corn in there, and I think there's some barley in there, and then molasses. So molasses is very sweet, and really they don't need that. We were feeding this Goat Sweet to them for years, and then we went and we picked up some grains, and we used the whole oat grain, and they loved it just as much. There was no difference there, and it's probably a lot healthier for them because they don't need that molasses. They actually don't need the corn necessarily either. Corn is more of a filler, so having the oats themselves is a lot more healthy. Now, how much to feed them? So usually what we would go with is maybe half a cup a day. half a cup to a cup a day for a goat or a sheep. So depending on their size, you know, you can kind of roughly give it to them in that amount. And what we would recommend is giving it to them more as a treat. None of our animals have actually had any kind of worms, and they've never been dewormed other than the natural ways we've done it. So I've talked about that in the past as well, which is pumpkin seeds. This time of year, you know, you're going to carve your pumpkin. Give them those pumpkin seeds. You can put in squash seeds as well, and of course diatomaceous earth, and I've done a few videos on those as well. So diatomaceous earth also works well for internally and externally. So these are some of the practices along with Christmas trees or spruce trees. Throwing one of those in with the animals, they'll eat it as they require it. Usually they don't munch it completely down. Of course, as soon as you throw it in, they just start going to town on it. But they'll eat as much as they need. And my understanding is because it's so acidic, that it kills parasites in the body, but you have to watch on pregnant does that they don't get too much because they can miscarry. So I wouldn't recommend it giving it to does that are further along in their pregnancy. All right, well, I couldn't resist, so here you go. Oh, look at that, I can't even get one off. Yes, Hannibal, there's one down at your feet. Here you go, girl. Well, take the whole thing. Where's your daughter? Oh, there she is. Hannibal, okay. You want one more? You haven't even finished what's in your mouth yet. Hungry Hanny. Look, the rooster's getting your apple piece. This one's going to be for little Meadow. Meadow. Come here, Meadow. What are you sniffing? Here. No, Hannibal. There you go. You eat. Oh, you're gonna. Yeah, there you go. No, that's it. I don't. No, Hannibal. No, Hanny. He is just a hungry boy, aren't you? He's just loving the apples. Yeah. See, now it's just an endless circle. So I give them some, and then they just come. Where's more? Where's more? Did she get it? Yeah, she's eating it. Okay, good. They had, it looks like, no, Shadow got it. Not quite there yet. They did get a whole lot of fresh veggies this morning. So every weekend, and that's another thing, you want to try to diversify their diet and give them, give them some grains every once in a while, of course, as treats, because they love to eat that. And then, of course, vegetables, fruits like apples and such, along with their staple diet of hay, or if your region doesn't support the growth of a lot of prairie growth, then you would have to go to a pelletized, of course. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned something. I think I covered everything. I was trying to go over in my mind what else there was, but if I did miss something, please leave that down below in the comment section. And until next video, we'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye. Welcome to the 10 Acre Woods. My name's Mark, and today we're going to talk about goat care. So there's been quite a few questions answered down in the comments. Questions answered. They've been answered. Sure, they've been answered. I've answered them.